Coming up next, he was the face of hope for a struggling Vancouver Canucks franchise in the 1970s. He was a first-round draft pick with a cannon of a shot. Rick Blight was a rising star until he suffered a career-altering injury thanks to a reckless hit by a notorious teammate. Now, today we'll look back at Rick Blight's remarkable journey, one filled with promise, conflict, and ultimately tragedy. Welcome to the Pro Hockey Alumni channel, where we celebrate the legends of hockey's golden era, 1966 to 1993. Now, if you remember listening to hockey on AM radio and hoping you could get that clear reception on a cold winter night, this channel is for you. And those from those legendary broadcasters in the radio booth that I learned about the legends on the ice, such as today's subject, number 8 of the Vancouver Canucks, Rick Blight. Rick Blight's hockey journey began in Portage-la-Prairie, Manitoba, where his natural talent quickly set him apart from his peers. By the time he joined the Brandon Wheat Kings in the Western Canadian Hockey League, it was clear that he had big league potential. Now, as a rookie in 1973, Blight recorded an impressive 93 points and added 130 points a year later, skating on the right wing with legendary Wheaties center Ron Chipperfield. But while Chipperfield was a blue-chip prospect, Blight flew under the radar screen of the NHL scouts. In 1974, the WHA Michigan Stags offered Blight a six-figure contract, but he chose instead to return to the Wheat Kings, stating, "I want to show the NHL teams I could play, and coming back to Brandon was the right choice." Now, in his final junior season, Rick Blight led the Wheat Kings in scoring and established himself as a versatile all-around player, as he proved he could be a productive player without Ron Chipperfield and his setups. The Vancouver Canucks took notice, and they selected him 10th overall in the 1975 NHL draft. Upon drafting Blight, the Canucks felt they had chosen the best player available. But there were question marks. The scouting staff was impressed by his shot and his playmaking skills. However, his skating was atrocious, and he didn't like the heavy traffic in the corners. One observer noted that Blight's skating was akin to watching someone stomp through mud. However, when Blight arrived in Vancouver, he wasted no time making an impact. In his rookie season, he scored 25 goals and added 31 assists. His strong shot, combined with his high hockey IQ, made him an immediate offensive threat. Now, according to Canucks Director of Player Personnel Larry Popine, quote, "Rick has better timing than any rookie I've ever seen. He has good hockey sense, and he always gets good scoring chances because he has the ability to get open in front of the net." Now, despite Blight's success, the Canucks slipped a bit from their Cinderella 74-75 season, and they finished with 81 points in a first-round playoff exit. Incredibly, that 81-point total for Vancouver would be their high point for another 16 years. Sorry to remind you of that, Vancouver Canucks fans. Rick Blight's sophomore season in 76-77 showed that his rookie campaign was no fluke. He led the Canucks in scoring with 68 points and cemented his role as the team's offensive leader. A highlight came in October, when he tied a franchise record with 4 goals in a loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, teammates admired Blight's poise and skill, under pressure particularly. Chris Odlefson said, quote, "Rick had one of the best shots I've ever seen. He was the one guy you wanted on the ice when the game was on the line." But Blight was also prone to long scoring droughts and self-doubt. As an example, he suffered through a 20-game midseason goalless streak, but still ended the season with career highs in goals with 28, assists with 40, and points with 68. Now, Blight followed that breakout season with another strong campaign in 77-78, scoring 23 goals and 62 points. But again, he battled prolonged slumps and confidence issues. Early in the season, he told the Hockey News, quote, "I'm not skating well, I'm not shooting, I'm struggling with everything I'm doing." But he turned things around when he was paired with veteran center Pitt Martin and rookie winger Jerry Gillis to form the Canucks' most consistent line. The highlight of that season came in December 1977 when the Canucks faced Spartak Moscow as part of the Soviet team's 5-game series against NHL clubs. Now, these were no ordinary exhibitions. This was the height of the Cold War, and this game was broadcast across Canada. The inspired Canucks skated to a 2-0 upset victory, with Blight scoring both goals. Rick's performance in that game further cemented his reputation as a clutch player, and at season's end, the Canucks rewarded him with a hefty $123,000 3-year contract plus an option. But Rick Blightt's career took a devastating turn during training camp in 1978. With just seconds remaining in an inter-squad game, teammate Hilliard Graves, one of hockey's most hated players, delivered a reckless hip check that tore ligaments in Blightt's knee. The injury sidelined him for 6 weeks, but its effects lingered much longer. Hilliard Graves, he was a tough but controversial player due to those dangerous hits like the one that injured Blight. He was strong, but he's a short player who would deliver vicious hip checks at the knee level. He was an underdog scrapper from the Maritimes, and he had established himself as a useful NHL winger for the California Golden Seals, Atlanta Flames, and the Vancouver Canucks. But he decided early in his career that at 170 pounds, the only way to combat the bigger players was to perfect his kamikaze-style hip check, and he was detested for it. For example, between 1975 and 1977, a partial list of his casualties included Serge Savard, Rene Robert, Jack Lynch, John Grisdale, Dave Hutchinson, Noel Price, Gary Monahan, Brad Park, and Jack Valaket. NHL GMs took notice. They voted him the league's top body checker in 1977 in a Toronto Star poll. And in fairness, he was never penalized for these hits. The difference between a Hilliard Graves hip check and a typical hip check of, say, a Bob Plague or a Brad Park or even a Denny Potvin is he delivered these at full force, skating forward and squatting low. His timing was deadly, and he often hit from the blind side. Ex-California Golden Seals teammate Gilles Meloche recalls Graves as, quote, a dirty little bleep. Another ex-teammate, Gary Crotto, acknowledged that Graves ended several players' careers. The day after he sidelined Blight, several Canucks players privately lamented that Graves' act was a, quote, dumb move. But his ex-teammates all agree. The feisty Graves was the type of guy you wanted on your team. I don't think Rick Blight would have agreed with that. Now, Rick eventually returned to the lineup, but the injury robbed him of the mobility that had made him a top scorer. Now, under new coach Harry Neal, Rick saw his role diminish. He was now relegated to the fourth line and removed from the power play. Frustrated, Blight demanded a trade, telling Neal, quote, play me or trade me. He expressed his discouragement in this candid interview.
I'll admit, I just had a horrible year from day one. I haven't played well, and I know it more than anybody. Why? It's just it's one of those things. I missed camp, and I just haven't gotten it back. And I feel worse about it than anybody. I'm quite sure. I know Jake's a little upset about it, but I think I've tried very hard this year. I've probably tried harder than I ever have, but it just hasn't come. And I guess that over the years there's been a lot of guys that have been upset to sit on the bench. I don't think that the Canucks or Mr. Alford or Gary want people that are happy to sit on the bench. I really don't care if I score. I'm trying to do the other things that that if you're not a goal scorer, you've got to check it. You've got to do the other things. I'm trying to do that, and it's frustrating. It's so frustrating. But certainly, if the Canucks don't have me in their future plans, I would just as soon move now and sit on the bench for another half a year and half of next year, and then get traded. If they have no plans for me now, I just assume no.
The Canucks tried to trade him, but his contract was huge, and there was little interest in him around the league. He was demoted to Dallas of the Central League for an extended stint in Texas. The 1979-80 season marked another critical turning point for Rick Blight as he worked hard to rebound from the previous season's disaster. The effort seemed to pay off, and by mid-season he had scored 12 goals in 33 games, until disaster struck again, this time on December 29, 1979. An awkward fall on the ice caused ligament damage to the already compromised knee. Blight recalled the moment vividly, saying, quote, I limped back to the bench and told Harry Neal I'd screwed up my knee. I tried one more shift, took 2 steps, and turned right around. The injury ended his season and essentially spelled the end of his NHL career. Now, Rick failed to make the Canucks roster in 1980, and he was again demoted to Dallas, but his attitude and production remained strong. He compiled a team-leading 95 points and returned to Vancouver for a do-or-die 3-game stint at mid-season. He scored a goal but was demoted once again. His contract was bought out at the season's end for $40,000. In the 81-82 season, he was cut by the Toronto Maple Leafs, took a brief sabbatical in Switzerland, and returned to the Central League with Cincinnati and Wichita. Despite these demotions and transitions, he retained a scoring touch. In fact, his 18 goals in 16 games with Wichita earned him a tryout with the Edmonton Oilers in 1982. But he failed to make that loaded Oilers roster, and his career ended in 1983 after a brief stint with the Los Angeles Kings. In total, Blight played 326 NHL games, scoring 96 goals and 221 points. Returning to Manitoba, Blight found new purpose. He took over the family's farm equipment business and became deeply involved in the community. He also rekindled his competitive spirit through curling and competed in provincial tournaments. His amazing hand-eye coordination also helped him become a high-level golfer both during and after his career. In 1995, he was elected to the Manitoba Hockey Hall of Fame. And that's testament to his contributions to the sport and his lasting impact on Manitoba hockey. Now, Rick Blight was off the public radar for the next decade. But meanwhile, his farming equipment business faced mounting financial challenges, and the strain of managing a struggling enterprise began to weigh heavily on Rick's shoulders. It affected every aspect of his life. He once lamented to his wife that, quote, "You just can't trust people anymore." On April 4, 2005, Rick suddenly drove off in his 2004 Dodge Ram. He didn't tell anyone he was leaving, or did he tell them where he was going. Several days later, he was found in a truck on a quiet stretch of farmland outside St. Ambroise, Manitoba. At 49 years old, Rick Blight had decided that life was no longer worth living. Rick Blight left behind his wife Donna and 2 children, a son and a daughter. Some friends and former teammates struggled to reconcile the news with the Rick Blight they knew. Chris Odlinson, for example, reflected, quote, "Rick had everything. He was successful. He had his family. He had his business. I can't imagine the circumstances that led to this." Ron Chipperfield added, quote, "Rick was one of the most talented players I ever had the privilege to play with. But more than that, he was a great person and a good friend. It's heartbreaking to lose him." Blight's wife, Donna, spoke about the toll of his struggle, saying, quote, "Rick was someone who always put others first, but he carried so much inside. We miss him every day, and we hope his story helps others who are struggling." In the years following his passing, with help from the Vancouver Canucks, the Rick Blight Memorial Scholarship was established in his honor. The scholarship supports young student athletes in Manitoba, ensuring Blight's legacy continues to inspire future generations to pursue their dreams both on and off the ice. So what are your memories of Rick Blight? Perhaps you watched him with the Vancouver Canucks or the Brandon Wheat Kings. Let us know in the comments below your thoughts on that. Seems like, when I think back at the Canucks of that era, they had guys like Rick, Jerry Gillis, Dennis Vevergaard, Ron Settlebauer, guys who had these strong starts to their careers or brief highlights in their career and then just seemed to hit a wall. Also wanted to get your thoughts on Hilliard Graves. You know, he was never, as I said during the documentary, he was never penalized for those hits, certainly never suspended. So it's hard to call him dirty when everything was legal. At the same time, he was dangerous. So I just want to know your memories of Hilliard Graves and if you remember the controversies about him back in the day. If you enjoyed this look back at the life and career of Rick Blight, then check out this video of another legend of hockey's golden era.